easier when you're out in the sticks, but saying that, during the war, they used to do it in bloody window box. So it can be done. Can be done.
So would you say the common goal would be the well-being of humans, animals, and the environment?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's clear that we can't continue to farm the way we are, and that we're relying more and more on methods very aggressive methods like certain types of pesticides to keep yields high, and on unsustainable land use in order to keep yields high, and try to keep food prices low, which actually isn't even really working anymore. And so we have to make changes, because otherwise we're just kicking the can down the road, and at some point it's going to result in disaster.
I guess.
Hey, welcome to Citizen Science Survey, where we interview people on the streets about ongoing societal questions and provide background information. This video's topic is pesticides and our system of food production in general. All references are provided in the video description below. We rely on a global agricultural network to provide us with fresh fruit and veg all year round. Just to give you an idea of our consumption's extent, globally we produce around 300 million tons of fruit, 1,100 million tons of vegetables, and 2,700 million tons of cereal per year. To do so, our current food production system relies heavily on the use of pesticides. A staggering 78% loss of fruit production, a 54% loss of vegetable production, and a 32% loss of cereal production would ensue without the use of pesticides. This is a systemic problem and results from the way we farm. Our current farming methods overexploit land, use predominantly monocultures, mass farm non-regional produce, and sustain farmers' dependencies on agrochemical companies. Some pesticides harm more than just the pests which they target. Some remain in soil and water for years. As the WHO writes, pesticides are potentially toxic to humans and can have both acute and chronic health effects, depending on the quantity and ways in which a person is exposed. Although safe levels for international trade have been set for pesticides, testing shows that maximum safe levels are breached on a regular basis, as we shall see later. In developing countries alone, the WHO estimates that around 350,000 people die every year from acute pesticide poisoning. This does not include deaths from cancer or other chronic diseases caused by pesticide exposure. For all that said, dependence on chemical pesticides has become one of the most pressing challenges to global environmental sustainability and public health. There are projects that try to tackle this problem and create alternatives, such as integrated pest management methods and organic farming. Even though there is a rethinking of current pesticide use taking place, deep-seated socio-economic and political interests are a hindrance. Pesticide industries have much more power in influencing and distorting related policies than ordinary people. In fact, it has been revealed decades ago that the involvement of pesticide industries in politics and scientific research, known as the Cynical Conspiracy, was the main reason that pesticides had been continuously manufactured, sold, and promoted across the world. We asked, can companies be trusted to adhere to food safety standards?
No, I don't think so. I think they'll get away with as much as they can without being
Caught.
Yes. Yeah, I do. I know. I think they pay lip service to it because they have to do, but it's a very expensive experience, I think. Adhering to all these standards, puts money on their bills. So if they can get away with it, I think they will. And I think they'll have another situation where we find out that some major food outlet has cut corners and it's caused a whole lot of risk to the population.
I don't trust companies full stop. There's just money in it. That's why it's called a company. They're not to make money on backs of people like us.
When I eat food, when I eat vegetable, and I feel very different from natural, because I know many times I'm growing in big city, but many times I go to village. I went to village, many villages actually. to my aunt or uncle or my grandfather, and I know what mean natural tomatoes, cucumbers, you know. And I live here. I live here from August, fewer than 1 year. Yes. And I until all this time I not test. I don't test natural vegetable.
No, not necessarily. I think they just do it for show, or as much as regulation allows them. Like the whole scandal with the bad beef from America a couple of years ago. That was not good, but clearly was allowed. So I think they just try their best to go around it, but they don't actually ensure safety.
Yeah, I'd say the same. Yeah, it's all like a superficial, tokenistic thing. It's like upfront, people look into it, they say they are, but they're not actually.
This means, for now, pesticide residues lurk on the shelves of the supermarket. In the UK, the government monitors pesticide levels in food. That includes fruit and veg, animal products and grains. However, this provides a snapshot at best. Remember how many million tons are produced each year? By comparison, only roughly 3,000 samples are tested in the UK annually, with each sample weighing 1 kilogram. In 2021, mere 6 varieties of fruit and 8 types of vegetables were tested. This limited amount does neither reflect the huge range of produce available, nor do the tiny quantities tested compare to what is consumed in fruit and veg in the UK in a year. We asked, are regulations well suited to protect us?
Do you think that the food safety standards are also adequate that we have, and that they are also tested for?
So I think a lot of the safety standards we have are adequate. Of course, I know there's a lot of concern about where we are now after leaving the EU and the erosion of some of those standards. Things like the famous chlorinated chicken and whether that's going to become common in the UK. I do worry about certain things, particularly with food that's eaten raw, fruit and vegetables that might be eaten raw, whether they may be contaminated with trace amounts of pesticides, and whether things like the use of paraffin wax and other waxes on fruit is actually safe for consumption. And I'm not sure that there's adequate research being done.
I'm not sure that they're adequate, really, to be honest. I think they're as low down the scale as they can get, you know, without causing a lot of eruptions from the suppliers. Yeah.
Well, again, I think it's a very large market for the government to police. You've got loads of restaurants, fast food outlets, everything. You can't go around monitor each one every day or every month or whatever.
I'm not too sure. I don't know too much about the subject itself or what regulations they have. However, it is pretty much the same answer as previously. They just do their best to adhere to some slight recommendations or such. However, it's not too bad. Like, I'd say it's better than, say, America and stuff. They've got loads of artificial flavorings and saturates and all that. That is not good, which we protect against, but it's not everything.
I'd like to think so, yeah.
But I think if I can give you advice, I think we must have chance for checking this. Yes, people must have chance for go to these farms maybe, and it must be open for people who want check how work this. I mean, its system must be open for people, for people feel protect.
On their webpage, the Pesticide Action Network UK reports, the government argues that it's unnecessary to test more than 3,000 samples of food per year because it is based on a risk-based system which focuses in on food items which are most likely to pose a threat. But of the 12 types of fruit and vegetables on the 2020 list of concern, the government chose to test just 2 again in 2021, ignoring 10 of the other produce of concern. We asked how many of the samples tested annually exceed the maximum residue limit in breads and grapefruits.
Probably most of them.
Bread, I think, exceed the pesticide, maybe around like 30%, 20-30%. Grapes I think are probably higher.
No, grapefruit.
Grapefruit. Oh, okay. since it's imported, around 30-40%, just a bit higher.
Oh, so with the breads you were quite close, it's 25%?
Yeah.
But for the grapefruits, like all of them, 100%.
Wow.
Exceed the allowed values.
That's a lot.
The idea there is that if you take a random sample, you should pick up problems, but of course there are often ways of manipulating that sort of data, and there's not really an easy way for the public to see whether what they're eating is potentially contaminated, especially if it's come from a country where there are fewer restrictions or less monitoring on things like the use of harmful pesticides.
Taking a snapshot, isn't it, really?
The term produce of concern is itself problematic. These are products that exceed the maximum residue level or limit, short MRLs. MRLs are set, simply put, based on the limit of determination, or in other words, the detectable presence or absence of residues. However, certain residues may not be quantifiable at very low levels, but may pose a potential threat to health, nevertheless. And for substances that are undefined, a default value applies. MRLs also apply to individual pesticides only and not to pesticide cocktails. These are mixtures of multiple pesticide residues, and there is evidence that these chemicals become more harmful when combined. In 2017, more than a quarter of food samples in the UK contained residues of multiple pesticides. Over the past decades, many highly hazardous pesticides have been replaced with less hazardous ones, which were initially considered relatively benign. But these too turned out to pose serious health and environmental risks. Let's take a closer look at some pesticides found in UK food. Insecticides, grouped under neonicotinoids, although banned in the UK, are still detected in fruit and veg consumed on imports. Another one is the fungicide imazalil, which is extensively used on citrus fruits post-harvest. It is mainly present on the skin of the fruit. Nevertheless, since it is classified as a carcinogen and reproductive and developmental toxin, the EU plans to reduce the current maximum residue level by 500 times. And the most famous one, glyphosate, which is linked to various types of cancer, birth defects and kidney disease, is not only still used in the UK to grow crops, but also widely applied in UK towns and cities to combat weeds. We as humans want to be able to safely grow more than enough food to feed the global population. To do so sustainably, we have to build our food system centered around health and mutual respect. So what can be done? What are realistic methods to farm more sustainable and healthier? On top of foods imported into the EU and UK are fruit and veg. On the other hand, cereals are the top product exported from the EU. As it seems impossible to thoroughly test the large volumes of imported food, it could be argued that it would be much more expedient to increase local food production and focus on organic farming practices and integrated pest management methods. And at this point, we have not even considered the additional environmental impact of transportation of food around the world. However, local production faces in itself seemingly insurmountable issues in viability for the farmers. Since energy costs have skyrocketed, the situation has forced UK local apple farmers, for example, to close orchards. This of course leads to exactly the opposite of what is required for the future farming, that is, even more imports. This shows just how multifaceted this problem is and how it ties into bigger socio-economic challenges we face. Another important point that objectively needs addressing is animal farming. 80% of agricultural land is used for pastures and cropland to feed and farm dairy and meat animals. In the hypothetical situation in which the entire world adopted a plant-based diet, research estimates a reduction of agricultural land from 4 billion to just 1 billion hectares, despite an increase in consumption of fruit, veg and cereals. Considering this freeing up of land, an increase in local food production to meet local supply in the UK and EU can be realistically facilitated. An increase in local and sustainable food production would be a major boost for the creation of new jobs as well as research and development opportunities. However, this ties again in with another issue, and that is our current way of work distribution, and the cheap labor that is bought and brought from poorer countries. This was highlighted by the UK's example in the aftermath of Brexit. Not only did energy prices rise due to the ongoing war crisis, but labor costs increased due to Brexit and the ensuing exclusion of cheap labor, contributing to, for example, apple farms closing. Tied in with distribution of work and food consumption is another issue, and that is convenience food, and the little time you have to cook up meals from fresh produce.
Nowadays need from people make everything faster because people have a lot of work, people not have time for cook, but very important nowadays keep your health, because from one side you not have time, but from another side you can see what some cafe, I don't want to say name this cafe, fast food, yes, would make with people a lot of sick from junk food, I mean also, yeah, because many people don't want to cook.
So let's start with the easy questions. What have you eaten today?
Toast and eggs.
Toast and eggs. Yeah, and you're starving for the burger.
I'm waiting for the burger, yeah. Waiting for the burger. Shut up, you.
Chicken sandwich.
So avocado, some mozzarella, olives.
Bagel.
A luxury lasagna with garlic bread and a very fresh salad. And then we had a mini crumble, which was gorgeous. And that's about it, I think.
Bagel sandwich.
Quick and easy, innit?
Convenience food is the major contributor to UK's obesity crisis and results in a looming health crisis to an already buckling health system. Only 42% of Brits have or are willing to take the time to cook a meal from scratch every day of the week, and 50% of those spend less than 30 minutes on preparing food for themselves and their families. In most cases, probably because there's too little time of the day left to do so. These are issues that in themselves need to be addressed. But back to our food imports. Growing food locally would also help developing countries that at the moment largely export crops for animal feed, to safeguard the food supply for their own population and thereby put less pressure onto them to use pesticides and farmers dying from pesticide poisoning. Ultimately, the switch in food production would increase biological diversity and genetic variety of crops, leading to a more resilient food supply, equipped to deal with the increasing challenges connected to extreme weather conditions and biodiversity loss connected to climate change. Still, we believe that growing fruit, veg and cereal increasingly local and organic can be done.
Can be done.
If we set our mind to it. We can increase local production to satisfy local demand, while at the same time slowly adopt to different forms of sustainable farming, according to principles of harm minimization, towards workers, consumers and the environment. Of course, it has to be affordable for everyone too. To achieve this, a shift in mindset is paramount. A shift towards seeing food as more than a commodity, a shift towards people being more connected to the food they consume. This is what people said about finding alternative solutions, local farming and getting involved in food production.
Do you feel like urban farming or permaculture, local permaculture gardens would be a solution to the problem, or can you think of anything else?
No, I think that could be a partial solution. I mean, the space of land required is obviously a concern, but then we're seeing things like hydroponic or vertical farming coming in, which save on land use. And then, I mean, of course, there's concern about the fact that you're having to then artificially create an environment for food production. But with things like solar spectrum LED bulbs, you know, that can be a lot more efficient now than it used to be. So I do think that is a viable option for the future, vertical farming and hydroponic farming, to try to reduce the amount of land that's required and bring farming more local, make it more local.
Like I say, my friend's got a garden. He goes on the website and he gets free seeds to grow his own. But I think that should be widespread.
No, what I want give advice also. Maybe government try use some parts of ground here in England and put some gardens, like Apple's garden. Apple's garden big, and
The lifetime they get into that, the better it will be for them. Yeah. Yeah, it's educational, but it can be fun.
Can you see any issues with that? in our society today as it is set up now today?
I wouldn't have thought so. Why would you have issues with that?
Well, time-wise, maybe.
No, like I said, you can make it fun. You can make it something that all the family can be involved in. It can be, you know, educational as well as a good experience, and yeah, show them how your food is grown. Yeah.
Well, again, I'm an allotment owner,
Yeah.
holder, and I grow my own foods,
Nice,
fruit and
nice.
vegetables, and I like to get my hands dirty and grow it. But a lot of people, my generation, the younger ones, don't want to know. You know, just want the easy fix, the easy option. Go to the shops, pick it up, or sit on the phones as the ads tell you now, and get your food delivered.
I mean, yeah, no, I like to do a bit of gardening. I mean, there's the allotments over there. There's every now and then. There's one with Green Action. They've got an allotment, do a bit of gardening.
We not have in law something like against people who want sell some vegetable from his garden. I mean, never police stop some people who sell, like some old woman won't sell her vegetables from her garden. And she sit with boxes vegetables in bus stop or near some supermarket, and no one touch her, no one. And a lot of like these examples we have in Ukraine, and she not use some bad materials like pesticides, yes, in her garden. She just grow something because she not have a lot of money. She grow something and simple and sell, and many people buy from old woman or old man or another people who want from garden sell something, fruits also. Many, a lot of people buy from, not from market, from outside, from some people.
I'm up for that. I'm up for that a lot. Yeah, I've got a friend and she does a lot of that. She goes out, because in Leeds, you need to go out further out to get stuff like that, really.
Those allotments, yeah.
Yeah, well, my father-in-law, he's got an allotment, and my friend's got a garden. We had a Christmas dinner one night, and everything on that plate was from the back garden apart from the meat and the gravy. It's easy done if you want to do it. Hard work, though.
You can't sustain organic.
Well, as much
And
as I can.
homegrown.
Yes, yes. I mean, you just brought a whole load of rhubarb, haven't you? Which is going to make so many rhubarb crumbles, but none of it has had pesticide on, and it's brilliant.
As far as I know. No, again, so I would like to go organic, but you can't sustain organic growth in this country.
I was going to say, I'm glad you said this country, because I've been to America, and they have whole food stores where every single thing in there is organic. And I believe Prince Charles and the Queen that was always eat organic. Yeah.
They can afford to.
And that's the end of that.